Before we talk about the papers, and did you guys read the papers? Good. It's only 3, right? Were there 3 papers? Yeah, only 3. So I had an interesting task this summer. So I was on a panel. And on this panel, we were supposed to discuss the past research in AIS over the past 30 years. Okay? So AIS research is in basically 3 main journals. The Journal of Information Systems, that's a AAA journal. The Journal of Emerging Technologies and Accounting, that's a AAA journal. And then the International Journal of Accounting Information Systems. Okay? So let's say we use those 3 journals. And let's say we want to do something like, we want to automate the process of analyzing detecting what are the main research themes or research streams or topics over the past 30 years. It was from 1986 to 2014, so a 29-year period. How would you go about, what are some ideas to detect the research themes in these, what are about 800 articles? Okay, how would you know like which is the most popular topic, or which are the topics that used to be popular but they're now in decline, or what are the emerging topics? Okay, so what if you wanted to automate this process? What would you do? Go ahead and think about it for a second. Do you understand the question? Yeah. Yeah.
Can use some text mining software and to capture the keywords in the abstract of the paper, and to see the frequency of those keywords, the trends of the movement of those words, and code the weight, something like that, to find which one is the hottest topic.
Good idea. So he said, count the keyword. Are you counting individual words?
No, just first you set up some keywords before you do the.
Oh, so beforehand you define what the keywords are.
Yeah.
So give me an example.
Like continuous auditing.
Continuous auditing.
Yeah, like to combine those 2 words and something like that.
No, I like it. So you come up with a list of possible topics.
Yeah.
How do you come up with that list of possible topics?
For example, you have an 800 paper, random select like the amount of paper that you can do this, like 80 papers, something like that.
Oh.
And you based on this sample, and you get those keywords and text those sample with another small sample, like you mentioned in the last class with the cross validation test.
Okay, so your idea is to take a random sample of 10% of all the articles, and then manually determine which are the keywords or keyword phrases that you want to search for in all 800 articles, and then somehow use those counts to track their usage over time. All right. Anyone else have an idea? So one of the problems, something that happens, like, what if you have a keyword is XBRL model versus XBRL technique or something, XBRL data, okay? XBRL model, XBRL data. You have 2 different keywords. Or should you just say it's XBRL?
I prefer just XBRL.
Oh.
Oh, I don't know because.
Or what if you have continuous auditing and you have continuous monitoring? Those are 2 different keywords, I guess. What about continuous? Or there used to be other. Is it continuous accounting? No one says that, right? Or do they? You know, the point I'm trying to make is you're going to run into situations where there's multiple ways to say the exact same thing. So you could say database research and database theory. But you're saying just count the word database. Or you're saying, and how do you know when to count 2 words or just 1 word? I mean, you'll have to decide, right?
So maybe we just regard like the continuous auditing and the continuous monitoring at the same thing, at the same topic.
That's a good idea too. So you come up with different phrases you want to search for, and you say, well, these count as the same thing. Okay. Now, if you're going to do that, you're going to put in a lot of manual labor, though, right? You're going to have to first identify all the phrases, and then somehow determine which ones actually mean the same thing. And it might be really close in some cases where you're not sure, but you have to choose one way or the other. And so, is there any other automated way to do this, where you can take out the human decision making?
Yeah, my strategy is first of all you sort the citation from the 800 papers, and the top 5 citation paper. I try to find the same common topic.
Okay.
From citation.
So you take out of the 800 papers, the 5 that were cited the most,
Yeah.
and you look at
Yeah.
those.
Yeah, I assume the most cited could be more popular.
Okay. So the themes from the most cited papers are the most important themes.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that sounds reasonable. But how do you get the themes out of the most cited papers? That's a manual process, or?
How about use some Google Scholar or something like that? Google Scholar to search it.
Okay. Well, I like the citation idea. I think this has been done before. I mean, people look at citations a lot, and it would work here. Well, my exact problem was tracking the themes over time. So I guess you could find the important themes from the most cited paper, and then take that theme and kind of search for those words over time, right?
The important is not only the tops, maybe the top 5 or top 10. Maybe 5 or 10 can say more than only one top.
Now, you know, the new papers will never come up in your citation. They'll be weighted. I mean, we're going to be looking at the papers from a long time ago, possibly, maybe at least 10 years ago, that have a lot of citations.
Another logic is if it's a new paper, the evolution of the paper could be some more citation in their reference. For example, if this new paper could be very popular, the citation of this paper, the reference of this paper could be have some similar things.
Or you could weight you could say citations per year. So the new papers are weighted, equally. So 1 year they had 10 citations. Maybe that's the same as an old paper that had 80 citations in 8 years.
You can also find the movement of the number of the citation every year.
Yeah, I guess you could.
The old paper used to be very not popular before, but this year more.
But can you get that data? Then
I don't know if we can find the time of the citation on the Google Scholar.
You could probably work out a way to try and estimate it yourself, the number of times a paper was cited a year. Anyone else have any other ideas? So do you want me to tell you what I did? it's not the right way, it's just the way I did it. Okay, this is what I did. So, I should really show this. Let me tell you what I did, and then I'll show you the results, okay? So what I did is I downloaded all 800 papers. Actually, I didn't do all the work. Yan and Yui helped too, so wherever Yan is, he should get some of the credit. So they helped me download this, all the papers, and I decided just to look at the abstracts and not the whole paper, okay? And my first thought was to look at the keywords in the abstracts. You know how papers put keywords in. But for about a third of the papers from these journals, and mostly the older papers, they hadn't started including keywords yet. So I couldn't just rely on the keywords underneath the abstract to determine what the important theme or topic was. So what I did is I said, well, I had learned in my one of my text mining classes, maybe it was my statistical natural language processing class, I learned about identifying noun phrases. So a noun is a person, place, or thing. And I figured every theme that I'm interested in has to be a noun. It has to be a thing, right? So if I was going to do part of speech tagging on these abstracts, then I'd look for nouns. Okay, so that kind of limits what I'm looking for. But sometimes we're looking for something that's more than one word, right? So the word auditing is one word, but what about continuous auditing? That's two words, and I wanted to get the whole phrase. So the word continuous, what part of speech is that? So in this context, continuous auditing. What type of auditing is it? It's continuous. So continuous is an adjective. Yes, it describes the type of auditing. Okay, so it's continuous auditing. What did you say though?
I said it's a present state.
Oh yeah, it's currently, yeah. So I was looking for a combination of adjectives and nouns, but not just that. I was looking for any sequence where I used a regular expression, basically. It was any sequence of adjectives and nouns, but it had to end with a noun. So any, you don't have to write this down. I'll give you my paper later where I describe this. So you can write down them. Any sequence of adjectives and nouns. So like continuous audit reporting, okay? So that's like two adjectives, maybe continuous audit. I don't know how it would count it. I should say continuous audit reporting. But they would all be grouped together because it's a sequence of adjectives and nouns terminated by a noun. Ends with a noun. So I think I got 4 or 5 word phrases. Anyway, so I extracted all of these phrases from these abstracts with just a short little script in Python. And I got like 28,000. Yeah, it's like way too 28,000, but then I think there were sometimes the same phrase was used in the same abstract, so I just counted that as one. So I ended up with like 8,000. Okay, so about 8,000 different noun phrases, I called them. So I thought, okay, well, I can now count how many times these appear in each abstract. But the problem was many noun phrases meant the exact same thing. So if I had XBRL reporting versus XBRL research, or continuous monitoring and continuous auditing, there's also continuous auditing techniques. There were just so many phrases that meant the exact same thing. I had to figure out a way to count them as the same thing. So one way I could have done that was I could have just looked at the similar words and grouped them together. I could have written a little script to do that. But this time, I did something I'd never done before. I thought, well, if I could Google each of these phrases and then look at the top web hits for each phrase, then if two phrases return the exact same web pages or a similar set, then I'll just count them as the same phrase because they give me the same web search results. So I thought, okay, well, how do I do this automatically? So you try to do this on Google and it'll kick you off. You can write a program that makes Google search queries, and that's okay. But if you try to do like more than 30 in a minute or 30 in 5 minutes, then Google recognizes what you're doing and they kick you off. They don't let you just do that with their search engine.
And Twitter will do the same thing.
Oh, Twitter will do the same thing?
You're right.
Yeah. So they protect their IP. I mean, if I could Google everything that fast, I could actually steal all of Google. Well, they don't let you do that. So anyway, I thought, well, there must be a Google API where I can become a member of, sign up for this service and run their API, and maybe it'll allow me to do it that way. And I couldn't find one that would directly let me do that, so I was pretty bummed. But so I went to a different search engine. I went to Bing, and I went to the Bing API, and I was able to sign up for their service. And I think I paid like $20 for 10,000 searches. $20 a month for 10,000 searches a month, and I'd run a search, and it would give me this whole data dump with the top web hits, like the top, I don't know how many, plus a bunch of other stuff that would show up. So I did that. So I paid the $20. I binged all 8,000 of my phrases, and I got the top results for all 8,000. And then I canceled my service so they wouldn't charge me another $20 for the next month. So I ended up, I didn't know what to do. So I just said, well, I'm going to take the top 10 hits, the top 10 results for each phrase, and then I'm going to put them all in a spreadsheet. So that's what I did. And then what I did is I think I wrote, I don't remember if I wrote a Python script or something in VBA. Anyway, I found out all of the phrases that had matching web search, web hits, web pages that it returned from the web search. And then I used some rule to decide, I think it was just one. Like if they had any match at all, I'll just count them as the same thing. Okay, maybe I could refine this later, but I just did one. And then that's how I did it. That's how I combined phrases into the same phrase, And then what do you do to decide which phrase is the representative one? In other words, you have continuous auditing and you have continuous auditing techniques. So which one becomes your phrase that you show in your paper? You know what I mean? Because you're merging them together. So what I did is I said, well, continuous auditing has more matches with other phrases than continuous. Which one did I say had more matches? Yeah, and that one did. Has more matches than just continuous auditing. So that's the one I picked. Anyway, I don't remember how many I came up with, like about 3,000. I still had 3,000 phrases. I thought, well, that's still a lot. But I'm going to go ahead and count now how many times they appeared in the abstracts over the years. And I'm only going to look at ones that occurred at least, 5 times. And that got me down to like 150. So there were only 150 that occurred at least 5 times or something like that. So let me show you the results from that. So I wasn't planning on going into this much detail on this, but I think it's more interesting than just talking about papers, since this is something that I actually did. But while this is booting up, do you guys have any questions about For some reason, the title is messed up, so I'm just gonna. All right. Okay. Can you read this word right here?
Database.
Yeah.
Database. Okay. I don't know why the title is messed up. Like it used to. This used to. Say whatever was selected here. But now it's always the first, the top one. And I don't remember. I don't know how to link it right away off the top of my head. So. Okay. So. Database. All right, let's just talk about database. So you can see that in 1989, there were 2 articles that mentioned database in the abstract. 1992, there were 2. The high points were 2001 and 2008. I should have the total somewhere on here. It is right up here, the total. You know what? Let me put the total right here. 2014. Okay. So 19. So I have like, this was the number 1. It's like a really generic accounting and AIS research, super generic, and it doesn't really tell me much. But it mentioned the most. Okay, 10 times in 2011, 72 times. And any that you want me to pick? We should look at continuous audit, right? Since that's what Nichols does. So continuous auditing techniques. 32. So it's one of the higher ones. I think it might be number 5. So this goes up to 16 because the topic with the most mentions in 1 year had 16 mentions. You know what topic that was? It was XBRL reporting. In 2012, it had 16 papers on XBRL. That is just not. Maybe it'll go back up. Okay, so we're writing this paper now. So I presented this as a panel. See, most of the time at panels, all the panels I've been in, you just kind of, you're an expert in the area and you give your opinion on certain things, you prepare a little bit, and you're on the panel because you already know a lot. And when they asked me to be on this panel, I didn't know a lot. I didn't really know what was the past research or what to expect in the future in AIS. So I just did something I didn't know how to do, or figured out a way to do it, and there's other ways to do this. So I just figured I could contribute by counting the number of topics in AIS journals using text mining. So let me go look at the paper. Notice I'm the first author. So that's because it's alphabetical. So they just M is before R. Okay. So my stuff's in the beginning. So here's my kind of like a regular expression. It's not a real regular expression. Actually, it's just written as a regular expression. Okay. So you take a noun or an adjective, 0 to many times, followed by a noun at least once. Okay. All right. All my tables are at the end of the day. Okay. So here I just took the top 15 themes. I think it's 20 now. I need to fix it. Yeah, it's 20. Okay, so it used to only be 15. Yeah, I just track them over time. So you can kind of get a sense in one glance. So this is 1986. This is 2014. And here's the accounting and AIS research. Okay. Should I zoom in a little so you can read those? I can't even read them. Oh. So here's one. Different internal audit organizations. I've never done research in that area. I don't know if that's an area or not. But that was number 2. So in each of the graphs, I decided to just make them all relative to themselves, basically. So the high point is always here, but I always put a number indicating what that means. So the high point here is 8. So everything is relative to 8. So this is probably 4, you know. So see the third one, information system development, systems decision, internal control, enterprise resource planning systems. Okay. So I didn't like curate this. This is all just from my tool that I made, or just the algorithms I use. So this one is fun. So XBRL reporting, there's like nothing, right? Nothing. Research method, that's kind of general. Continuous auditing. REA framework, can't see the number there. Third. Control risk assessment. Now, your AIS, what area do you do research in?
Right now,
Yeah,
I do the visualization.
that's not on there. What about you?
Continuous internal control.
Internal control? Yeah, that was this stuff on internal control. That was up there, right? Yeah, high. That was high up there. Yeah.
Control risk assessment.
Control risk. Really? Well, there it is. And it's going back up. But the high is only 3, so maybe you can make it go higher. What about you guys? You're accounting, but
I mean, my research.
what's your area? Yeah.
Oh, behavior finance.
Okay, that's not on. What's yours?
Corporate finance.
What?
Corporate finance.
Corporate finance. It's not on.
Corporate governance.
Corporate governance. That might be. Was there? Did you see governance on there? Huh. Well, it's not there. Cool. So this table right here, I'll skip that thing. This table is interesting. So I look at the top themes from the first 24 years. Okay, so it's only 29 years. So I divided 24 by 5. So here we have 1986 to 2009, and the top themes, and how many times they occurred. So we have this one again, accounting and AIS research was the top theme. And here it says, well, what's the rank of that theme from the last 5 years? Okay, so here it's number 2. So it's still at the top, right? So information systems development goes from number 2 to number 10. And this one stays at number 3. Systems decision goes from 4 to 10. ERPs 5 and 6. Internal control 6 and 4. REA goes from 7 to 59. So no one. The thing is, it's just really well established. Like we teach REA in our classes if you take an AIS class, but I don't know if a lot of people do a lot of research there. So control risk assessment, that was yours, right? So it went from 8th to 21st. So we're going to bring that back up. And your continuous auditing, did you say that? No?
Yeah.
Yeah. So from 10th to 5th. So it's hot right now. Okay. And what was yours again?
Visualization.
Oh, visualization. And this table goes in the reverse. It takes the most recent topics, okay, and it orders them from 1 to 20, and it compares how they were used in the past. So, control governance is hot right now, but it wasn't. You know, it has 11 counts in the past 5 years, and only 5 counts, mentions in the 24 years before that. So. All right. So anyway, go ahead.
What's internal auditor's place?
I don't know. It's just I told you how I did it. How I came up with these lists, and maybe someone who wrote that in their abstract could tell me what. I'd have to see the original abstract. I should go look for the original abstract where it says internal auditor's place, and see what it means. Yeah.
You compare this result with Google Trends.
With or without?
Google Trends.
Google Trends?
Uh-huh.
Oh no, I haven't. So what does that do?
It's
For the website mentions. Oh,
Yeah.
that's interesting. That's a good idea.
so maybe there is some similar trend. Similar trend. I mean, I just Google control risk assessment.
Right.
It's about this.
And that's over the past. That can't obviously go back to 1986.
Yeah.
Because when was Google invented? Well, of course, 1986, like the internet probably existed, but no one had it in their home. We didn't have it until like 1991. And that was like we were one of the first. Like I had it before all my friends. 91, yeah. 1990 actually is when we got it. Because my brother went to college. My parents didn't want to pay long distance phone calls, so we would just email. Yeah.
How did you categorize your nouns? Because place there can also be a verb, right?
Sure. I mean, so I trust my part of speech tagger
Okay,
to.
so they do it.
Oh yeah, I didn't do anything manually.
They said like how often it appears as a noun versus an adjective, and then you just categorize it as one.
It doesn't tell me how often it does categorize it as one or the other. It just picks based on the part of speech tagging model I had. It just picks the one that occurs most often as. So if it found the word place by itself, it probably is a noun most of the time, I'm guessing. Auditor's place, I mean, maybe it's something else. Internal auditor's place, if this existed in the model, internal auditor's place, it would pick the part of speech for place from that 3-word phrase. Anyway, it's a noun in any of those cases. Anyway, the part of speech tagger decided. I didn't decide. But it's the best part of speech tagger I had. Yeah. So my whole goal here was to not do anything manually. So I think it worked pretty well. I tell people about it. That's how well I think it works. Any other questions at all? So yeah, we're sending this to AIS. Hopefully this week. All right. That's enough of that. All right. No, I don't have the clicker today, so I'll be walking back and forth. So we're going to talk about this paper by Larker and I've never met Anastasia Zakoliukina, so I apologize for butchering her name. So what do you guys think about this paper?
It's good, but some limitations.
Got some limitations?
It's a good paper with some limitations.
Oh, good paper with some limitations. Care to elaborate?
The result is not very persuasive.
Oh, the results aren't persuasive? Okay. Some would agree with you.
When I read this paper, I had a lot of questions, and some of them were addressed in the discussion. But okay, so firstly, I thought it was a good paper because, as they mentioned, it was an exploratory analysis. So it was the first time that someone looked at deception through, I guess they call it the discussions, management, and Q&A. But like they mentioned in the discussion that just because you're, I don't know, like looking somewhere else doesn't necessarily mean that you're lying. There could be other factors that are taking place.
Right. So, just because there was a major restatement doesn't mean they were lying in that particular occasion.
Right.
That's probably the biggest criticism. Anyone else have any comments on this? Did you? Oh, go ahead.
I agree with her.
You agree with her, yes. Did you notice they made their own dictionaries in this paper? Remember last week I told you to, well, we didn't spend a lot of time on it, but I gave you the opportunity to think about, well, if you could make your own dictionary, you know, what kind of dictionary would you make? So I'm just showing you that this is Journal of Accounting Research, okay? You guys and me, we wish we could publish there, right? So here's a guy and girl who made their own dictionaries. And I gotta tell you, my favorite part of this paper is one of the dictionaries they made. Because I've seen that phenomenon in another context. And it's just great that it appeared here as well. I'll tell you about that when we get there. So, let's see. Let's see, we estimate linguistic-based classification models of deceptive discussions during quarterly earnings conference. Using data on subsequent financial statements and a set of criteria to identify severity of accounting problems we may at least call as truthful or deceptive. Now that's the part that everyone probably, you know, that's one of the I can't think of a word. It's on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, that's one area where they were criticized. What they labeled truthful or deceptive, right? Prediction models are then developed. Okay. So according to them, what is the problem being solved? Improving the assessment of whether reported financial statements are intentionally misstated. How is the problem solved? Analyze linguistic features present in CEO and CFO statements made during quarterly earnings conference calls. The authors draw on deception theories to identify features of text that predict deceptive reporting of financial reports. Now, one thing you probably didn't notice that when they cited one of the papers, one of those is one of my papers. Pretty exciting for me to get a citation. But you didn't notice because I wasn't the first author, so it just said et al. That's okay. You can go find it if you want in the references. I wrote that paper as a PhD student, by the way, so you guys should do the same. So what are the contributions? All right. So according to them, these were their findings. Okay. So they say, and this is a pretty bold claim based on their methods. There's another real big problem with this paper. Anyway, they're saying that their models are better, equal to or better than other accounting models that just use our best measure of fraud, maybe best predictor of fraud, discretionary accruals. I think most people wouldn't believe that assertion at all, right? Because of the problems with the paper. All right. All right, so those are the findings. Questions?
When I read the paper, I just have the idea. Because people are different, so why in the future you can compare the same person? Now I understand that they are talking different.
Oh, okay. So I think I see what you're saying. So in this paper, they looked at the conference calls. So the reason they did that, one of the reasons is it's not as scripted as the 10K or the MD&A, right? And you're saying that, well, the people, they come up with these measures of deception, but people lie in different ways. So how can these measures of deception work for everyone? Wouldn't it be better to just look at an individual and do a within subjects comparison and say, well, when he's telling the truth, this is how he talks.
Yeah.
When she's lying, this is how she talks. And then you'll get this gap that you can exploit and predict whether they're lying or telling the truth. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and I've been in studies where we've asked people the truth to tell the truth, we've asked them to lie, and then we look for differences between when they're lying and telling the truth. And that's how a polygraph exam works as well. They do a within subject comparison where they ask someone to tell the truth. They ask baseline questions, and if you deviate from the baseline, then I guess you're lying, right? So that, yeah, they compare the person to themselves. It's a good comment. All right. So when they're coming up, you see, when you're trying to do a study like this, where you're relying on all these different dictionaries, and most of their dictionaries come from this psychosocial dictionary called Luke, L-I-W-C. Luke, it's called. Anyway, you have to come up with reasons why you think that a liar or a truth teller will talk a certain way. So they're coming up with these reasons, okay? So why would there be a difference between a truth teller and deceiver in how they talk? Why would we expect there to be any difference at all? Well, because there are emotions at play. So deceivers feel guilty. They're afraid of getting caught, so they're nervous and shaking. And so this brings on negative emotions. All right, so there are theories that say that. Also, there's a lot of cognitive effort, right? So if I'm telling a lie, it's very difficult to do, to tell a plausible lie. It's easy to tell the truth and convince someone I'm telling the truth, but now if I'm trying to convince someone that I'm telling the truth when I'm not, then it takes mental exertion. So here we say, without time to rehearse, verbal statements should lack detail. Okay, so this does not apply at all in this context. And I'm telling you this based on my own research. And I feel this is very probably true. That actually, when you're in a quarterly earnings conference call and you're gonna lie, you don't have this problem. No time to rehearse, okay? You know exactly what you're gonna say when you're gonna lie in this setting, and which makes your statements even more detailed, perhaps, than a truth teller. Okay? In fact, what I've found preliminarily, yeah, I said it right, is that one of the differences between a liar and a truth teller in the quarterly earnings conference calls is that the truth tellers are much less fluent in their speech. They have a lot more pauses and filler words like you know, or they repeat a word multiple times before getting to the point. So the truth tellers don't speak as fluidly as the deceivers. That's what I found in a data set I looked at. And I think that's because the deceivers have plenty of time to rehearse. They stick to a story. They're like Marco Rubio. I don't know if you guys watch the debates. They said he's like a robot. Well, they're all like robots. They're all well rehearsed in the debate. And they're all lying, okay? So, just like the liars in the quarterly earnings conference call, they sound spectacular. Yeah.
Because I was showing us his talks wearing robots, cardboard robots.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, that wasn't very nice. So, it goes for everyone. Because these guys and girls go and tell, you know, they give 3 speeches a day. They're not going to do 3 different speeches, right? Anyway, you get the point. Control. Liars avoid producing self-incriminating statements. The content of deceptive statements is controlled in order to hide deceptive cues. Okay, this kind of goes back to my previous point. But it's this thing where they do have the time to rehearse that changes the context of other deception studies. All right. Lack of embracement. Liars appear to lack conviction because lying causes discomfort, which would cause more general terms, fewer self-references, and shorter answers. So the deception, here's the thing, the deception theories that this paper relies on are not very applicable to this setting, I don't think, okay? They're talking about interpersonal deception between, you know, I'm with a friend or I'm with my girlfriend or whatever, and I'm telling her this big fat lie, and, you know, and I'm kind of nervous about it, or maybe she asked where I was, you know, and I'm lying about it, or whatever. Or maybe I stole my buddy's wallet and I told him, you know, and I'm lying about it. Those sorts of things, right? Yeah. This is a totally different situation. We'll see if it holds up in this study. All right. So here are the hypotheses. So I guess the negative sign here means that the deceiver will use fewer words, or fewer of those types of words, than the truth teller. Okay? So fewer first person singular pronouns. So the words I and me and moi. Yeah, I and me is basically it. So they don't want to talk about themselves because they don't want to be associated with the lie. Okay, that's the idea. So first person plural pronouns, they're going to use more of. Oh, I see. So instead of saying I did something bad, we'll say we did something bad. Diffuse the responsibility somehow. I don't want to link myself to the deception. I'm going to just unconsciously use words like we, us, or my company, the company. Okay. All right. So third person plural pronouns like they don't say for sure. Impersonal pronouns like it. Reference to general knowledge. Okay. This is the one I would have known exactly how to guess. So go to that dictionary in the paper in table, maybe table 2 or 3. Oh, table 1. And then let's go back to. I also want to go to the hypotheses and say exactly what they say about this one. So they say, okay, so here are the words in their dictionary. I think it's a really good dictionary. And I want to borrow it and steal it and use it on other stuff. So the words like, you know, we got this, the economy is really bad, so this is how our company is functioning right now. And investors would agree that this is happening there. And I think there needs to be a whole paper on this. And, let's see. Others well know that right now there's been this going on or that going on. Okay. So they say in the hypotheses, they say, let's see, this is page 506. Although the association of general statements with deception is theoretically ambiguous, prior empirical research finds that deceivers use more generalizations. So that's what they call these reference to general knowledge. We also expect that deceptive statements include more references to general knowledge in order to gain credibility. So they're saying this to be credible. Well, others know this, so it must be true, okay? You know this. Like, oh, I do know this? Okay. Well, yeah, you're telling the truth. Okay. So they expect the deceivers to well, I don't know why it's plus minus here, because they said we expect deceptive statements include more references to general knowledge. That's what they said. So this should be a plus, right? I think so. I think I'm right. Anyway, I love this dictionary. It's really good. I saw the exact same thing in another data set, but I didn't write anything about it. I just observed it. I did count. I had one phrase I looked for. It was you know. And it was in place with the deceivers. They used the word you know significantly more than truth tellers. And the context was way different. So these were interviews for heinous crimes that were preceding a polygraph test. So the polygraph test where they tell if you're lying or not, lie detecting test. So the polygraph test has questions about the crime to find out if you did it or not. But before they create the questions, you get to have like an hour-long interview asking about the crime, asking what happened, just a sit-down and talk interview with the polygraph examiner beforehand. So I had the data set of these interviews for, I don't remember how many, 50 or so interviews. And these were like, most of these crimes were like sexual predators, child molesters, rapists, I don't know if there were a few assault cases, but most of them were of the other kind. And I just noticed they always, when they were lying, I could read the transcripts and this person's lying because I saw the word So I did a search, I counted how many times they said for truth tellers and deceivers, and there was like a big discrepancy between the two. So in matters of financial crime and sexual crimes, they both use the phrase and what they call general knowledge phrases in order to gain credibility. I thought that was really cool. And if you look at the results, that's like their strongest result in this paper. Go to page, table 6. Yeah. Table 6, general knowledge reference. Those are the most significant results in the whole table for both the CEO and CFO. So I think they kind of missed an opportunity here to explore that in more detail. Maybe I don't think they talk about it that much in the discussion section. They sure didn't build it up very much in the hypothesis section. But I could see an entire paper about this. It's so interesting to me. And I think there's work to be done there. All right, let's go on. Okay. What time do we get out of here? 5:20? So an hour and 40 minutes. So here's some more of their hypotheses. Assent words like yes, okay. I guess they say deceivers will use fewer assent words. Why did they say that? I can't remember. And on and on and on. Extreme positive words, they'll use fewer of those, but more negative, extreme negative words. Hold on, I want to read about those ones. So here's the theory. The theory is that lies often include statements that indicate aversion toward a person or an opinion, such as denials and statements indicating a negative mood. To capture this dimension, we use the loop categories of negation, anxiety, swear words, anger, assent, and positive emotions. We expect that negation, anxiety, swear words, and anger are positively related to deceptive statements. In our setting, we expect that executives will use extreme positive emotion words such as fantastic to sound more persuasive while making a deceptive claim. Okay, so that's the plus here. So if you're like angry in a negative mood because you're telling a lie and you just don't want to be there, and maybe the questioner is accusing them of lying, then you'll have more extreme negative emotions. All right. Okay, so yeah, they did create new dictionaries, which was nice. Okay, so here's the controversial part, right? So how do they label a transcript as deceptive or not? So does anyone want to like go through it? How did they label a transcript as deceptive? Do you remember? Go ahead.
Well, I have in my notes that they follow 4 approaches. It's like the first one is they label a restatement as deceptive if it involved a disclosure of material weakness, auditor change, a late filing, or AK filing.
So that's one way.
And the second is a restatement is deceptive if it relates to an accounting issue that poses a significant negative market reaction. The third one, it's not very clear. It says it's deceptive. A restatement is deceptive if it involves an irregularity.
So the restatement is not deceptive. Remember, they're like going one step away from that. They're saying the earnings call prior to the restatement is deceptive if the restatement involved one of these things, right? Yeah, so go ahead. So you didn't, this is the one, the irregularities that was kind of odd to you.
Right.
So they just basically searched for the words restate or restatement, fraud, and irregularity in the press release, news article, or 8K associated with restatement, and then they determined whether they used that to determine whether the earnings call prior to the statement was fraudulent. Okay, the last one.
So the CFO or CFO is deceptive. The restatement involves a formal SEC investigation that leads to an AAER.
Yeah. So this is this is one way they identify fraudulent, or this is how they find fraudulent firms, the ones that the SEC is investigated, and they release these AAERs saying, okay, there's been fraud here. And there are like 4,000 of these releases. You can download them all on InDart. So they use the conference call transcripts associated with quarterly financial statements. Okay, if a 10K was restated, they assumed that they were deceptive the whole year for 4 quarters prior to that. All right. So they had these. So if there was restatement, the transcript was labeled as deceptive, meaning, yeah, I guess the executives were lying during the conference call. Okay. It's kind of, it's not very strongly to stand on. Here are their results. So so I have 2 columns because they analyzed the CEO. They divided the transcripts into when the CEO was talking and the CFO was talking. And they also did something interesting. They merged together the 2 parts of the earnings call. There's the management discussion portion. So in an earnings call, it starts out with the CEO or CFO or someone just reading a statement, basically, to the analysts. Then afterwards, the Q&A. So they say in the paper, well, we expect the Q&A to be more free form, and they'll say whatever they want, and we'll get stronger results because it's unscripted. But they don't. They get similar results, which maybe means the Q&A is actually more scripted than we think, their responses to the questions. Anyway, so in their results, they just combined the 2 sections of the earnings call. And sometimes the CEO is talking and sometimes the CFO is talking. So these blue ones are the CEO and the black ones are the CFO. So they got some results for their hypothesis. Okay. Okay. Now, did you guys expect them to get results? I can tell you right now, I expected them to get results. And there's one good reason why. They should have gotten at least 8 results randomly. Because how many t-tests did they conduct? How many t-tests did they conduct? Anyone want to count them? So there's 19 different variables, right? There's 4 different ways that they count fraud. Okay, so if you look in this table, table 6. table 6. All right, look. There's 19 variables right here. Right, 19. There's 4 different ways that they count fraud. And do they do some sort of correlation test to show how similar the groups are? Or do they talk about that at all? Because they must overlap. Or do they not overlap? They do. They don't, or they do? They don't overlap. No, they must. I don't remember. Doesn't matter for this point I'm making. So 19 times 4, how many tests is that? That's 76. Times 2, because this is just the CEO. Then they do it all again for the CEFO. All right. See? They do it again for the CFO. Table 6 continued. So what's 76 times 2? 152. So 2 of you agree, so that must be the answer. I am a third. So you run 152 t-tests. Okay. So randomly, so let's say significance is at, p is less than or equal to 0.05, right? So that's saying that 0.05, you'll have a 1 in 20 chance of getting that result. It's 0.05. So how many, we have 152 tests, what are our chances of getting a result less than 0.05? Like between 7 and 8 times. You're going to get a result less than 0.05, even if there's no relationship, just by random. Anyway, so that was one of the criticisms in the next paper. I think you guys probably saw. Spurious correlations. Okay. So when you run that many tests, you're going to get spurious correlations. You're going to find, spurious correlations. So if you Google spurious correlations, you'll get all kinds of funny results. Right? You'll find this is related to that, and one that I remember that one of my PhD advisors showed me was that, well, when there are tornadoes, there are a lot of for some reason they always occur and they always destroy like trailer parks. You know what a trailer park is? You know, these trailer homes, they're portable mobile homes, and you have them all in one area. So there's like a high correlation for some reason between the existence of trailer parks and where a hurricane lands. Okay, there's just some correlation. So therefore, trailer parks cause hurricanes. So not only is that a spurious correlation, but you're trying to make a statement of causation. All right, spurious correlation. So Google it when you're bored. So conflicting theories of deception, executives. All right, let's go through this. So how is there a threat of spurious results in this study? Well, after what I told you, what would you say? How is there a threat of spurious results in this study?
You say how is there?
Yeah. It's basically what I just told you, but do you want to restate it? Go ahead.
If there is a spurious correlation, of course, you couldn't find any result. You couldn't based on your statistic because, the distribution is not right. Not the t-distribution, or some other, or maybe no distribution because there's a no relationship. I mean, if I generate a random number from a normal distribution, I can always find at least 5% of this number have a significant t-statistics with my independent variable. So
right.
maybe in this case, right? In this case, there's a 5%. So the result is not robust or not convincing.
Right.
Yeah.
And well, there are some convincing results in there, like the general knowledge one, where for every single test, all 8 tests, they found significant results. That seemed to me to be a strong result because you have 8. But for the rest of them, maybe where there's like 1 out of 8 tests is significant, it just could be random.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, here's. So I was saying how these deception theories weren't written for this context, and here Bloomfield is saying the authors didn't specify which deception theory most closely relates to this context. So here's the thing, I think I told you this last time, when you're doing text mining research, context is everything. It changes what you look for. Okay. So if you have time to prepare, some of these theories don't apply because they're for the unscripted, heat of the moment, I don't know, off the top of my head remarks. So here are the reasons why they don't think, here are possible reasons to show that the executives maybe are not actually being deceptive. They might act differently without being deceptive, okay? So let's see, SEC documents are far more likely to allege the CFO is reckless rather than an orchestrator of financial fraud. So they're saying it's not deception, they're just reckless, okay? They're just sure they did something really bad, but they were never lying about it, they were just being irresponsible. Okay. And here, it's still entirely possible that the executives are unaware of these material errors at the time of the conference call, right? But the authors in the previous paper just use it as a given. And they said deception is not easily detected. But here, it's true, deception is not easily detected. But I agree with deception theorists that whenever you're going to tell a lie, you always have to do something. There's always going to be something different, I think, than what a truth teller is. But of course, some people are better liars than others. And here they say they have concerns about causal attribution. Executives' linguistic behaviors arise because they possess evidence of poor current and or future performance. Whether or not they try to deceive investors during conference calls, or even whether they believe the evidence they hold is, on balance, bad news. Okay? So I just have information that you don't have, and that's causing me to talk a different way. I'm not telling any lies. So they say these different responses mirror deceptive speech. Okay? Executives who hold unfavorable evidence. They may convey the news to investors like doctors convey bad news to patients. So tactical conveyance of bad news looks deceptive. Executives may face investors who are already aware of the bad news. This may lead to defensiveness. Defensive speakers use techniques that look deceptive. Managers may not believe the news is on balance bad. They may deceive themselves. Self-deception looks like deception. Bad news creates stress, and language reflects this. stressful language creates folks deceptive. So maybe in these conference calls, they were telling the truth. They're saying bad. Yeah, everything's bad. They're stressed out. And it seems deceptive. Okay. So they want a stronger design. They want them to find out what the differences are between the Q&A and scripted portion of the conference call, since they didn't find any differences. All right. And they want more experimental research to isolate the causal factors of deception. All right. You guys have any criticisms or anything to say about this paper?
What I didn't get is why the CFO or the CEO would have different linguistics. Like, what's their incentive to be different?
Well, I think any difference between the two, you could say, would cause linguistic differences, because they're not clones, right? So maybe one just has a very different background than the other. One's the CFO of the company; they have a very different responsibility than the CEO. So when they're talking about the same situation, they'll come from a different frame of reference, so they'll talk about it differently. One might be more expert in the area than the other. There could be other reasons. What did you say?
Yeah, and they have different tasks to answer questions in the conference. That means different CEO will answer some question about the big picture, and CFO is about the technical detail.
More, right.
I'm curious about both of these two papers will publish at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they did that then. They took the editors, sent the paper.
That means the previous paper could have a big contribution because the critics is strong, is very strong.
So because of that, he made the paper less important because he criticized it so strongly.
Yeah. So what the contribution of the previous paper?
What is the contribution?
The dictionary.
Well, for me, I love that, of course, the dictionary. Well, they also bring deception theory into the accounting literature, which is good. It's just introducing new ideas, even if some might think it wasn't done very well. They looked at earnings conference calls in light of deception. I think that makes a lot of sense. Like, the whole idea of detecting deception doesn't make sense if you're looking at the MD&A. So where would it make sense? Probably the earnings conference call is their best data set that you could use these deception theories on. What else did the authors say? They did create a model. I didn't go over that, but they created a prediction model. I think they got up to maybe 66% accuracy.
I don't think the model is very good.
Yeah, I didn't think it was very good either. But still, they used the ROC curve, which is a great way to compare the performance of models. And I guess, I don't know if that had been done in accounting literature before. Maybe it had. So it's up to you to decide what the major contribution is. All right. So what time is it? It's 4 o'clock. So we have an hour and 20 minutes. So let's take a 10-minute break. Is it